Hey folks, it's Rod with Pow Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth. Today is Friday. Happy Friday. It's August 2nd. Hope you're doing well. And in this video, we're going to be discussing something you must know before starting an Airbnb or a short-term rental in 2024. I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions on a very important topic that I think a lot of people, they overlook. And I've been hosting on Airbnb for over 2 years now. I'm a super host. I've got almost a 5-star rating. With over 150 reviews. I've got an overall rating of about 4.91 out of 5. And I've put a lot of time and effort and research into the platform and also other platforms as well. And I wanted to make a video on this because a lot of people don't realize, how much trouble you could be in if Airbnb were to ever delist your listing. And it's actually happened to me in the past. You might have found one of my prior videos, but you really are at the mercy of Airbnb, and it's crazy how easily they can shut you off. So I'm going to be talking about a very important topic, but also some other things that you must know, probably 3 or 4 things total that should help you avoid any potential struggles in the future. Before we get to it though, make sure to smash the like. It helps support me in the channel. If you're new, you can subscribe, tick the bell, all that good stuff, and you'll be notified on any future videos or when I go live. As always, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and you should never buy or sell anything based on anything that I say or write. You can also follow us over on X, formerly Twitter. The handle for that is @GroupPow. Going to be using that as my platform of choice going forward. So on the channel, we focus and specialize primarily in MJ stocks, and secondly, crypto and blockchain. But from time to time, I do some real estate videos. Like I said, I have multiple Airbnbs. I've been in the business for over 2 years. I have 2 short-term rentals. They're condos. I have 3 other condos as well. 1 that I live in and 2 that are long-term. So I have 5 in total. And I've owned duplexes and houses. I've been a landlord for well over 10 years now, over a decade. And I've got a lot of experience with this sort of thing. And I'm also on the board of directors at one of my current condos. And like I said, this business is not easy. Real estate is a long-term game, but it can provide some short-term gain depending on how you structure things and set it up. And as of right now, I'm getting a ton of cash flow off of my Airbnb properties. I've done a bunch of different videos, and I do here real estate. I have a playlist as well. If you go over and you can scroll down, or you can just search Airbnb and it'll bring it up. But under playlist, go to real estate. I have a video saying my real estate portfolio game plan and how I'm using Airbnb and short-term rentals. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm double dipping. I'm looking to benefit off the appreciation of the value of the home, and then also seeing cash flow of around 300 to 400% monthly, which is unheard of. And the reason why I'm able to do that is because of the Edmonton market, and I'll touch on that more in just a moment. But I did have my Airbnb listing suspended, and that was about 8 months ago. I posted a video on that. It's got quite a few views, 1.2K views, and a lot of people this is happening to. And it was absolutely insane. The reason, it was ridiculous why they suspended it. There was a false alarm with the fire alarm, and there wasn't even actually a fire. And one of my guests reported it, and my listing got suspended for almost 2 weeks, and I didn't even know what for. When I called, nobody would tell me why. It took almost 2 weeks for someone to get back to me. And then essentially I had to get the management company to write me a letter saying, it was a false alarm. Anyway, long story short, I got relisted, but I wasn't long looking at different alternatives to Airbnb, and it really shocked me that, wow, they really have all the control over you, and they can easily shut you off, right? And Airbnb's the head honcho, right? They're the number one in the space. So I posted a video as well. Again, go to my playlist and just scroll down, but I said Airbnb killer. Finally, somebody that is competing and has Airbnb met its match. And I think that booking.com really can potentially have what it takes to kill Airbnb. I've got almost as much bookings on booking.com this year as I do Airbnb. Airbnb is still the de facto leader, but it's crazy. I also had a community meetup. How do I deal with negative Airbnb and short-term rental reviews? If you haven't seen that, I also do like a little sneak peek of my new condo and my Airbnb setup. I did a before and after video of one of my new listings as well, so you can check that out. Superhost, tons of things on there. But again, if you just go to the playlists and scroll down, go to real estate, and then they'll all be in there. So one thing I just want to remind people of is to know why you're starting a short-term rental, right? Why do you want to start an Airbnb business? Are you doing it as your sole, purpose of income? Like, is this your main source of income? If it is, you're really going to have to prepare and figure out what you're going to do if you know what hits the fan. Because if you know what hits the fan, you need to have a plan, and you need to have a contingency plan. You need to have a plan, not just, in your head, write it down and, execute said plan. And one thing I want to just mention here before I jump into the biggest issue, and that is, what if they shut you off, and how we can avoid that. Figure out what you want to do in terms of owning the property. If you're in Toronto, right, or if you're in Vancouver, well, look at this article from CTV News. This is posted on June 14th, 2024. Edmonton is tied for the 5th most affordable city for housing in the world. Toronto, Vancouver among the least to report. So obviously Toronto, Vancouver, some places in Canada are just extremely, overvalued. And I would say Edmonton's the best. That's why I moved here about 4 years ago and bought so many properties here, is because I sold my properties on the East Coast, made a ton of profit on those, over doubled my money in a very short period of time, about 5 to 7 years. Who knows anybody that bought a house and it over doubled in like 5 years? I know a friend in Prince Edward Island in the East Coast of Canada. He bought a house for 200 grand, and then a couple of years later it was worth 400,000. Like, just insane what's happening since 2020, really. But it really started in 2018. And it's just taken off, but it's unsustainable, right? And Edmonton will come back, and I think it's a great place to live here. I love the city, but if you're going to figure out what you're going to do, is let's say you're saying, okay, well, should I do rental arbitrage, which is basically just convincing a landlord to let you do a long-term rental, and then you rent it out as an Airbnb, as a short-term rental, right? That's called arbitrage, where you don't actually own any property, you just sign a lease. This comes with its whole other can of worms and problems, because then you're locked into a year lease or whatever, 6 months, whatever you sign. And then there's other problems that could spur from that. Maybe that's a whole other video. But you really have to, ask yourself, what are you going to do if Airbnb shuts you off? So you're really in a bad spot if you're only on Airbnb and you're doing rental arbitrage and they shut you off, right? Then you have to sublet, or if they, try to find someone to take on that lease, or, break the lease and pay a penalty, whatever you have to do, usually about 1 month rent. But maybe you want to own. But if you're in Toronto and you're starting an Airbnb, or Vancouver, well, maybe you don't want to own, because housing is absolutely ridiculous, and it's probably due to cool down and come back down to earth, right? So if you're going to see a depreciation in the value of the home, well, maybe that's not the best to buy right now. Maybe those markets are better for rental arbitrage. Whereas in Edmonton, when condos and property, even houses and things like that, single family homes are still relatively undervalued. Like, they've been on the rise, but compared to the national average, it's still very undervalued. And you can check out some of my videos on my real estate playlist, where I go into that, and how Edmonton is the biggest interprovincial, and not just that, but migration, like from an international perspective. There's tons of immigrants coming here, and then interprovincial immigrants as well, just from within Canada. It's record. Every time I talk to somebody, Uber driver or whatever, doesn't matter, any industry, they're all coming here from Vancouver and Toronto, it seems, waitresses, waiters, etc. So if you want to start an Airbnb in Edmonton, or even Calgary's been on the up and up for sure, but it's still relatively low comparative to the national average here in Canada. And this applies for the US too. Look at the market that you're in. Is the real estate market overvalued, or is it somewhat, fair valued, or extremely undervalued? If it's extremely undervalued or even fair valued, maybe you want to look at owning a property. If it's not, if you think it's inflated and overvalued, and prices are likely going to cool down and come back down to reality, then maybe rental arbitrage is the way to go. But then you have to convince landlords, etc. So that's a big issue. But yeah, you have to think of this. This is the major thing that you need to know, right? What are you going to do if Airbnb shuts you off? And like I said, I had my listing for such a ridiculous reason suspended. So, and there's people that I know that have gotten their listing suspended for much worse. There was one complaint that there was a party. Someone had complained that there was a party, and Airbnb delisted their listing. They removed their listing, and there wasn't even any proof of this party. It was just a complaint. So you have to really be careful, and you have to have a contingency plan. And what you need to really ask yourself is, can I afford this rent, or can I afford this mortgage if my Airbnb business gets shut down? If my listing gets removed from Airbnb, can I afford that? If you can't afford that monthly rent payment, if you're doing rental arbitrage, or you can't afford that monthly mortgage payment and bills, well, then it's probably not a great idea, right? You need to really think about that. And then also, what are you going to do if, you own the place and Airbnb gets shut off, and you can't afford things, and you have to go into foreclosure? Like, it sounds bad, but these are things that could really happen. And the next thing I wanted to mention is be on multiple platforms. So VRBO, although there's not a whole lot of traction on VRBO or VRBO, I would recommend still setting it up anyways. And I've done multiple setups. I just finished setting it up for my friend as well, one of my buddies, and he rented out his basement, and he's getting a ton of traction here in Edmonton. So if anybody's looking for any information, I'll leave links in the description and the comment section below as well. For a referral link, you can actually get money using my link for signing up as a host. And if anybody does have any questions as well, I do consulting, which I'll talk more about here in a moment, but I can help you with setting up your listings. Booking.com, I would strongly advise getting set up on here, and then you can link your calendars as well so they sync to avoid double bookings, etc. There's also software that you can use, but I personally just use the iCals, which is the protocol that syncs them all, and it's very easy to use. It's free. But I recommend Airbnb, Booking.com, and VRBO. There's also TripAdvisor, but I've been on there for a few months now and haven't had a single booking, so TripAdvisor.ca/rentals is what I usually go to. And then there's also Google Vacation Rentals as well. But being just listed on VRBO should get you on Google Vacation Rentals. So that's the benefit of VRBO. So even though VRBO doesn't get a whole lot of traction, I would recommend setting it up because it does list you on Google's travel vacation rentals. So that's a great perk in itself. So if you were to get shut down from Airbnb, at least you have Booking.com and you have VRBO, right, as backup plans. And then, like I said, you could even go as far as TripAdvisor, although there's pretty much zero activity that I've seen in there here in Edmonton, Alberta. And then, like I said, the benefit of VRBO is that you get Google. So all of these things, kind of back you up. And if there ever was an issue with Airbnb and you get suspended, you're not dead in the water, right? So being on multiple platforms, it is a little bit of work, right? But once you get it set up, it's not too bad. And again, there's different softwares channel managers that can help you with that. I can help anybody if you have any questions. I know a ton of people in the POW group community have been asking as well. And like I said, I do consulting, which we'll touch on here in just a moment. But be prepared to rent it out long term as well. So again, if you own the property, maybe look at a place too where rent is on the up and up. Specifically Edmonton. Edmonton has some of the fastest rising rent and some of the most affordable costs. So it's very cheap living, and utilities are relatively cheap. Gas is cheap. So it's at the end of the day, you want to look at the geography and where you are and the market that you're in. So as I said, you can go to pursuitofwealthgroup.com or powgroup.ca. If you go to coaching at the top or just scroll down on the main page, I do one-on-one consultation coaching sessions. So if you want any coaching or consultations, you can go here. I book about an hour, $99, so about $100 Canadian. And essentially we can sit down. I can help you set things up. And like I said, you can use the link. You can go to my POW Group YouTube page, my main page, and then just click on the links here. You can scroll down. There's a link for Airbnb. You'll get a host referral. So when you set up your listing using my link, you'll also get a kickback, and it helps support the channel as well. And I also help hosts. If you're a host, I can do co-hosting and things like that. I can manage your listing for you, essentially just for a small fee of the booking. But yeah, I've been helping people with that as well. I'm already helping a couple people and co-hosts here in Edmonton. And like I said, I'm a super host. I've been doing this for over 2 years. And I've got multiple different experiences with different platforms, and I've successfully, launched other people's listings and had great responses. One person just launched a few weeks ago and already has pretty much all of August booked. So you really have to know what you're doing, and there's a lot to know, but it's really not that bad once you get the hang of it, and once you have a mentor and somebody that knows what they're doing. So like I said, the number one thing in 2024 is, what are you going to do if Airbnb shuts you down? You're going to have multiple platforms, right? And just to kind of recap, can you afford that mortgage or that rent payment without Airbnb? And if not, then it's probably not a good idea, at least not for right now. And if you're wondering, is it too late to join an Airbnb? Absolutely not. So you have to think about that. And there's great insurance policies and things like that with Airbnb, but being on multiple platforms is going to kind of mitigate that risk if you were to get removed from Airbnb. VRBO, Booking.com, I haven't had zero issues. Like they just do not care nearly as much as Airbnb. Their policies are definitely a little out to lunch. I've even heard absurd policies from guests where they weren't even a host, they were just a guest, and their account got suspended or removed, and they were banned from Airbnb just for something ridiculous. So it had to do with like a credit card or something like that. And one of my friends said that his credit card, and the name on the credit card got flagged, and they said that there was a issue with a potential with a past booking or something like that. He's like, this is my first time ever booking on Airbnb, and he got mad at them, and they basically just said, we're not going to tolerate this, and banned his account, flagged his account as like fraud or something like that. So it's just a little ridiculous. I mean, Airbnb is getting too big too fast, I think, and that's a problem in itself, and they're a public company now, so it has been getting better, but it's growing pains for sure. And as you get this big that quickly, you're bound to have some issues. So make sure you're on multiple platforms. Even though VRBO's not super, high traffic and gaining a lot of traction, it's good to be on there because you get on vacation rentals on Google. But also VRBO's doing a ton of marketing. I've been seeing their commercials a lot lately. Same thing with Booking.com. We're seeing a lot of their commercials on mainstream media and commercials. So that's a great thing to seeing it all over YouTube advertising. So the fact that they're doing more advertising means we're probably going to see more eyeballs and get more conversions and site visits, right? Which only helps you in your listing. So let me know what you think of this in the comment section below. We'll continue the conversation there. Let me know if you've experienced any kind of headaches or similar issues with your listings being banned or flagged, and what are you doing to protect against the inevitable getting that notification that everybody just kind of dreads and fears and has nightmares about. What if your Airbnb listing were to get delisted? What are you going to do? So let me know if you think this video was helpful as well. If it was, smash the like, share it with anybody that might find value. It's Rod with POW Group. Thanks again for joining us on the Pursuit of Wealth, and we shall see you again on the next video. Take care.